Hi and welcome. My name is Ali Hart and I am the host of this podcast, and you're listening and watching How to Build a Creative Business in a Noisy World. I really hope you enjoy the episode. You'll be listening to this now. We're well into the hindsight series, which is where I talk to people who I know, appreciate, some who I don't know very well, but others who I just want to get on to have a focus and a spotlight on them for them to share their wisdom and who are making waves in the creative industry. So with that, today I have Dan Ferguson. Hi, Dan.
Good morning.
It is great to have Dan. So I just want to put a little bit of, so one of the first paintings that I saw of Dan's was in the Yard Gallery, where we both had work, which is in Northern Ireland in a place called Hollywood, and not Hollywood in the States.
Hollywood,
but
1L.
1L. And the color, those of you who follow my work as well will know pinks, purples, they will always show up in what I do. And it was one of the Strand Cinema, Dan, that you had made, which I think now is sold. I'm sure it's sold.
Yeah. They've sold through them. Yeah.
And it was the colors and the tones and the hues, all of that was just, it really stood out to me. So I'm very excited on a technical level and on a just painter to painter level to have Dan, but it is great to have you today.
Thank you very much.
How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
So Dan's in his studio, I'm in my studio for those that are listening on the podcast, and it is suitably organized. Like both of us have paintings up, both of us have random stuff sitting about.
I've got a lot of rubbish knocking around.
Yeah, it's a good space. Where is it you have your studio at the minute? You Queen Street?
My studio is Queen Street Studios. Yeah, we're above Wise Buys in East Belfast, which is a fantastic kind of bespoke complex that they, with the help of the Arts Council, crafted when we were looking for new premises after they had to move from Bedford Street, and I was in the secondary unit, which was on Fountain Street, which right next to Primark, and we had to move out as soon as Primark burned down.
That's where I was there years ago as well.
Right.
But that I didn't realise you're now in East Belfast. That's brilliant.
Yeah. So we're in East Belfast. It's we're on the second floor above the whole of the Wise Buys complex. So there's it's an amazing space. It's huge space.
Yeah.
There's about, I think there's 40 studios, which is, and they're all of very, very good sizes. And then 2 kind of gallery spaces, very large gallery spaces in it. And yeah, it's a great setup, really.
Could you save one for me when I finally get out of emergency schooling and come outside the house?
You know what? The answer to that is no. We have got a ridiculous space. We got a really, really serious waiting list of, people who would be, very well regarded in the arts world, or whatever, and we just can't get them in. I suppose we need to kick people out.
That's true. And to be fair, I might not be able to get away from my kids till 2022 at this rate anyway.
Exactly. That's the other problem.
So could you just even in a little bit of a summary, and then we can develop on that if you want, but do you want to give us a little bit of a rundown? If I was to say to you, tell me what you do, or what is it that who are you?
I am, I guess I would regard myself as a painter. If you're going to define any particular artist, I say a painter. I am mostly, I'm very much a representational painter, mostly figurative work. I would say that you would find it very easy to navigate my pictures in terms of identifying what the various elements of the pictures are, whether it's a portrait, whether it's a landscape, whether it's a figure, a group figurative piece or whatever. The difference, if you like, if there is a difference, is that I try not to play by the rules in terms of colorway. I still very much respect value and tone and color and everything, so that you are able to kind of understand and differentiate between foreground and background and all that sort of stuff, so that there is no optical kind of challenge. So there's still a harmony there, but what I try to do is I try to move a color scheme outside of reality so that it can maybe touch upon an era of times gone by, or possibly an era to come, maybe a future that we don't yet know. And then it kind of sort of plays around a little bit with time of day as well, where you can't really necessarily always tell whether it's daytime, nighttime, or whatever.
That is what I was just thinking about. So when you're talking there, that cinema picture that I had, it's pinks.
Yes.
And as you said about the daytime, that was one of the things that I found really fascinating. Was like, is
Mm.
it the dawn? Is it
Mm.
a cloudy day? Is it? So and even if there, maybe you don't want me to use this word, but a vintage feel to
Yeah, no,
it, a bit of
vintage,
an old
vintage, yeah.
Kodak camera.
Yeah. Very, very true. I do. I borrow a lot of colors from old faded film photography,
Okay.
or moving image film, which I look at the way that certain colors degrade and others don't, or not as quickly, and how the imbalance then sort of appears in those pictures. And it started with a lot of old family photos, and then I started nicking friends, who started raiding friends and their families' photo albums and stuff. And I mean, with their permission, but I was kind of like, this is what I want, this is what I'm kind of looking for. And then it just kind of grew from there. And I kind of try to I have this ongoing compulsion to build a very sort of inexhaustible reference bank. I think, and see, this is the other thing that I do, and I don't want to overdo this. I don't want to over egg the pudding, but one of the things that I try to do as well is the pictures are not random. They're not just straight out of nowhere. There is a story behind virtually every single one of them, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to reappropriate memories, whether they're my own or whether they're something that was from a story that somebody was telling me, or something that I read, or whatever. And I'm trying to reappropriate those memories and present them as if they are the experience of the viewer.
Brilliant. And like at the minute you've won the roller skates, which to
Yeah.
me is me at the roundabout. At my mum's house, when my dad died when I was younger, and then my mum took away we lived in the country, so
Yeah.
she tarmacked that was
Right.
a huge deal. Like that was like massive. I remember for about a year she talked about it, but it meant that you could go on roller skates round. So I know that there's one of the girls on a street, but for me, I took myself there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's in progress right now. That's on the easel today. I tend to work at several at the same time, but that's definitely one of the ones I'll be working on today.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, there's a few that I'm going to do a series of roller skating ones actually. The demand has kind of exceeded my expectation. But I tend to keep any kind of series that I do, I tend to keep limited to like maybe 3s and 4s. I don't want to be known as the artist that does this. The artist.
I agree. Yeah, and I know I want to know more about your story, but I feel like that as well at the minute. And people tell me, "Why aren't you doing more of this animal? Why are you doing?" But for me as well, it's a lot to do with time with the lads. But they're getting older, and I've got help now in the studio, or not in the studio, but a VA. But I agree with that. I quite like that. I don't want to be known the same thing, because some people would say, "Oh, would you not want to, your man that maybe does the, I don't know, musicians, would you not want to be like that, or the people that walk with the umbrellas?" But I always try to say to them, not that I'm in any way Van Gogh or whatever, but I'm like, most artists you find the point is that we do a lots of different things. Yes, we've our style, but
yeah, absolutely. I think it's there's a very there's a series of very important kind of questions you have to ask yourself when you're creating artwork, if you're serious about it in terms of the actual materiality of art. And I don't want to go all MFA, not yet.
But yeah, I want to go MFA. So that's the Masters in Fine Art, which Dan and I both have done.
but there is a very important element in terms of understanding process materials and also creativity. And the thing with the help of some peers, you know, and in lots and lots of discussion, we kind of keep talking about this idea of the sweet spot. What is the sweet spot? The sweet spot in the process of making a painting is kind of it's that's easier to discern, because you know when everything kind of synchronizes, and then there's some sort of visual synergy there that you go, yeah, I'm on it now. I can feel it happening. But then there's also a sweet spot in terms of understanding what your body of work looks like, what you're known for, what you're kind of trying to say about yourself in terms of an amalgamation of visual things that you've presented and so on, and across an era, not just across the body of work. It may be more than one show, it may be several years, and I think that a lot of artists end up getting tricked up by their own by the demands that maybe are put on by galleries, by the demands that are put on by patrons, by the demands that are put on by, you know, and I don't think sometimes I don't think artists trust themselves enough to know that if they deviate away from what they're known for, that they actually might unearth some serious gems. You know, I think they kind
and
of.
That's what you say about, that's the beauty of art colleges, that you're in it and you don't have to think about anybody else or the bread and butter or the. But I feel like I'm only even surfacing back up again. It's like I've gone down to come back up. So tell me then, you're not originally from Northern Ireland with that accent.
I'm not.
Do you want to? So
I'm originally from North London.
Okay.
And born and bred. And I grew up I was born in early 70s and grew up in a place called Crouch End in North London, which is a very chic and well-to-do location of North London. But when I was growing up there, it was a hole.
Okay.
It was.
Didn't expect that. I thought you were going to say, so I had kind of, you know, privileged upbringing or something.
No. I mean, you know, I think I was privileged in many ways. I was privileged. My parents are both, you know, working class, or they were born and bred working class people, but neither from London. And but then both went into academia, and which is probably why I sound like this and everything like that. I didn't go to any kind of particularly privileged school or anything like that. You know,
people wouldn't. I wouldn't know accents, so don't worry about that. I wouldn't.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, sorry, I'm ignorant to that.
No, good. That's all very good. But nonetheless, it was a good experience. And then I went to art college in the early 90s, early to mid 90s. I did my foundation in like 92, and then did a degree throughout the middle 90s in the Norwich School of Art, or Norwich University of the Arts now. And it was good, but I enjoyed myself too much. I kind of I sort of I you know, I spaffed it up the wall, as Boris Johnson would say. I kind of really missed my ride a little bit.
Even in the final year, because I was pulled aside at the end of second year. It was Sandra Johnson. Do you know the performer?
Yeah.
And I remember her like so gently pulling me aside, and she's like, "You can't let
Yeah. No, I mean, people had that chat with me for sure, but I didn't really listen. I was no, I made work, and I remember writing a half decent thesis and stuff, but I just didn't do enough. I passed, and I passed very, very averagely and everything, and it was kind of, and then I was very sort of clueless as to what to do next. I kind of bobbed around, did a couple of really interesting, exciting things, and in many ways that can scar you, because you kind of want to achieve those highs elsewhere, and realize quite quickly that the opportunities that present themselves to you are a sign of how you're going to respond to those things. So you either take that opportunity with both hands and try and convert it into something, or the opportunity fritters away and you can't revisit it. And so after I finished my degree, I stayed on for an extra year at Norwich, and I was student union president, kind of post degree, and that was a great fun. But again, that was a bit to do with overindulgence of the social life and everything else. And by that time, I kind of run myself into the ground. But I
Oh,
learned,
sorry. No, don't mean to laugh there.
no,
I
no, no.
mean, just
Yeah, no, you should. It was very funny. It was literally everything you would expect in
well,
there.
just because you're like, so a year as a student union, like I'm like, that is
Yeah, paid.
that's
It was a
it's
paid
a paid
experience
social.
in an art school. It was, yeah, no, it was wrong. But I learned a lot about,
Didn't
and
you? You
I
see?
learned a lot about entertainments. I learned a lot about putting various events on and various things like that. So that was good. And then I from that, I was able to, when I left Norwich and returned to London, um, I managed through through a particular contact, I managed to blag a job as an assistant to the manager of a very up and coming new band at the time called Jamiroquai. And they were just about to go stratospheric.
Right.
And so I kind of surfed that wave for the best part of a year, well, just under a year. Um, well, no, it was about 6 months actually, then I sort of staggered on afterwards for a few things here and there. But it was yeah, it was a really interesting experience. You have to kind of, you have to be there to know what that feels like in terms of going to festivals with the bands and doing all those sort of things. And it was a very, very exciting time. And they were just, like I say, they were on the cusp, but they just launched their album "Traveling Without Moving," and "Virtual Insanity" was about to become the biggest
Okay.
MTV video in the world, and all that sort of stuff. And so it was quite an interesting thing. But then after that, I was lost in the wilderness for 4 or 5 years, just paying off debts and student loans and all that sort of stuff, working pretty crappy
In
jobs.
Norwich, sorry, where were you
No,
from?
this was in London. This was back in
London
London.
now at this
Yeah.
okay.
And then about 2001, I finally I had applied when I was in Norwich to do teacher training and been accepted, but then I deferred it,
Okay.
and didn't really think anything of it. And then about 2001, so this is about 5 years after leaving art college, I decided to bite the bullet and reapply. Um, so I did, and unfortunately I was accepted, and I started teacher training in 2002 in London, and that was a revelation. Education was a revelation. If I was born to do anything, it was to be a teacher, and I grabbed that with both hands. And absolutely, unlike the first time going to art college or university, I this time I worked my backside off,
Brilliant.
and it was fantastic. And so yeah, I taught in London for almost 15 years,
Wow.
in secondary school, in two secondary schools, one in Walthamstow and one in Boreham Wood. And both were very, very fascinating jobs. But I sort of around 2014, I started getting real urges about fulfilling my own creative kind of desires. I was I keep blaming the students. I'm not sure whether that's appropriate, but I keep blaming these A-level students who are very talented but didn't want to go on to do art, and they were seriously, seriously good. And I just thought, well, sod it. If you're not going to do it, I should do it, because I keep getting angry about the fact that
Yeah.
these kids are just not sure what they want to do, and everything else, and actually maybe what it is really more than anything else is that I want to go back to art college and right the wrongs that I had previously kind of not really properly addressed. And um and so and so I did. So
So
what happened?
2014 then, where we
No, 2016 was.
16.
It took till
2 years to get
yeah,
yourself
yeah,
kind of
to kind of have those conversations with my wife, make sure that we were on the same page. We looked around. We entertained a lot of different places um, in the south of England. So we looked at potentially moving back, possibly back to Norfolk,
Okay.
going there. We looked at sort of Brighton and the south coast. We looked at southwest as well, Bristol, all of that
So
sort of
you were
area.
looking at that with the view to MFA, so in
Yeah.
Brighton or somewhere. Okay.
Yeah. And then, but everything was way out of our kind of price range, in terms of how we wanted to live. And then I said to her, what about moving to Northern Ireland? And she was quite dumbstruck by the fact that I had proposed that.
She's from here.
Yeah, because she's from Northern Ireland and never really visualized herself, coming back. And anyone who knows anything about Northern Ireland knows how ingrained the idea of coming back is in the lexicon over here. So they often ask me when I move back over here, knowing full well that I never lived here in the first place.
Yeah.
Or I'm not from here, but they say still it's the same as saying we before anything. It's like it's just you just do it by it's the way it's done. So yeah, she was quite surprised that it was my idea, but I said, look, the MFA is very good. We can sell up and probably get a really nice place and everything like that, but not feel remotely stretched by it.
Yeah.
And everything else if we transition over there. And so yeah, one thing led to another. I applied, got on the MFA, we started looking for houses, sold up, moved out. I was so ready to leave London.
Okay.
I was so over London. And I think you have to, there's a lot of things that kind of feed that desire. One is having lived there for the best part of 40 years, or give or take 4 years up in Norwich. But I was half the year I was in Norwich, half the year I was in London. But the other thing is having 3 children. I felt more and more compelled that I didn't want to bring them up where we would bring them up. And it's not.
So you had the 3 kids before you moved as well?
Yeah,
I actually only thought you had 2 kids. You have 3 as well, right?
No, we had the third one that we had in 2015. So
okay.
Yeah, she was quite young when we moved, but it was absolutely paramount that we did this and it was a big deal. We didn't really, we did feel like it was a big deal, but we didn't feel like it was a major issue, because the excitement and the idea of wanting to experience this change really sort of drove it all, mainly for me, but also for Claire as well. And so it happened, and we were very kind of like following this crest of a wave and everything, and I didn't really miss a step. We moved over here, and almost immediately we moved over here at the end of July, and without securing any school spaces or anything like that for the 2 older kids. And it was a nightmare, and we had to do all those sort of things, and we were way outside the sign up times and everything like that. So in some ways we had preempted the future, because we were talking about the possibility of having to homeschool them and everything like that. And so, my goodness, if we'd known what that entails, wow, we would not be advocating that. Anyway.
I feel so sorry for my boys that they have me in any capacity. The only thing is English I can do, and art, obviously. But
exactly. But the thing is, even I've got 15 years teaching experience, and I hate teaching my kids.
My husband says the same. He says, "Give me a classroom full of 40 kids I don't know any day. Give me my 3 kids."
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want them near me.
I catch myself swearing. I can't believe that. I find it like.
Stop shouting, even though I'm shouting at them. That's me.
But the other thing is this idea of preparing a lesson. Like when you're teaching, when you're in a classroom, the class is set up. Obviously I'm used to teaching art. I was used to teaching film studies and photography and media studies and stuff like that. But the classroom would be set up with all the appropriate equipment and materials and handouts and everything like that, all planned in advance. You knew what was going to happen every 5 minutes. So regardless of whether you were going to get any interruptions or whether you were going to get any kind of bad behavior or whatever, you knew how you could navigate that. But this is definitely on a level, and I'm sure it will go down in the annals of history and whatever else in the future of, and in terms of cliches, there will be another one. They always say in terms of therapy and counseling, you never give therapy to your family. Never, ever. You can't provide therapy for your family. And I think that, another cliche to add to that is going to be, you can't teach your own kids. You can't. And I don't care what all those people who homeschool successfully or whatever prior to pandemics and everything like that. Whatever they say, they are an unbelievable anomaly. They are a fraction of a percentage of
Yeah.
and cannot possibly be counted. The vast majority of people cannot teach their own kids, and there's one key reason: they're not able to identify progress. Parents haven't got a bloody clue. They just want to get to the end of the task. And who can blame them?
And so do the kids. My kids just want to get to it. Yeah, and everyone wants it over. It's
Yeah.
brutal. And I don't even like, I try to find the joy and all in it. But on the other day, a nature walk, and as soon as we started the nature walk, someone was up to their knees, and then there was a fight in the puddle. It's just, and those are meant to be the nice times, and then you
Yeah,
come
yeah,
back, like
yeah,
I've still
yeah.
got. But yeah, anyway, hopefully we'll be out of it soon. So did you only do the MFA then in recent
So
years?
2016 to 2018, I did the
Right. So who were your tutors then? Just
Mary
friends, is
McIntyre
it?
and Dan Shipsides.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, Dan Shipside's brilliant.
Yeah, and it was an amazing and eye-opening experience. It was nothing like what I had anticipated, but at the same time, equally, uh, it was really enriching because I'm quite a big theory geek. I do like it. I do like reading theory and exploring those kind of concepts and ideas. And also, it was a great opportunity to have studio space and practice.
Yeah.
So those things were really very very rewarding and enjoyable on the one hand, and on the other hand, you are truly left to your own devices.
Yeah,
You have
it's
to be a self-starter. You cannot possibly rely on feedback, on critique, on anything, because it's so seldom.
it is, yeah.
It's so seldom.
It's
And
like monthly, really, isn't it? The
look,
monthly vibe or whatever you call
it
that.
is, yeah. If you're lucky enough to have any kind of element of consistency, it is.
Yeah.
But with all of the political difficulties going on within education as a whole, the amount of strikes and
Yeah,
there
you're very
various
interesting.
interruptions
Yeah.
that kind of that get in the way. You're unfortunately you're left in a. I mean, that is paled into insignificance, by the way, compared to what people are currently experiencing. Both undergrad and postgrad students are currently experiencing now in terms of what they've paid for and what they're getting.
Oh, I know.
Is
And the fact that they
beyond.
can't go out. You know, my cousin's daughter, Liverpool, in a room, like, and that's where she's just sitting all day. Just talk about mental well-being as well. You know, I guess, yeah, as you said, kids education right through, but the only
Yeah.
thing is we're all in the shitter together.
Yes, it's true, but at the same time is with that it's not. I think if anything, it's probably diluting a communal capacity for empathy, because
Good line.
I think you have to be able to project to a certain extent and draw upon your own understanding of compassion to be able to properly empathize with somebody who is experiencing something as traumatic as they are experiencing. When you are all experiencing it together, I don't see how you can really give that compassion, because you're right in it as well. It's playing out in your life, and you haven't got enough to give.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, but the thing is, and also I think that the people who are experiencing real true difficulties and everything like that are probably less vocal about it now, because they know saying me in an era where everyone is experiencing difficulty is probably a bit of an echo chamber.
But one of the things that you and I were talking about there is both the growth of our own businesses since lockdown last
Yeah.
year. So I believe that actually art does give a window of hope to that sadness and depth of just like, I don't like to use the word despair, but it's grim, you know, like it is,
Yeah.
and the monotony of every day. Do you believe that art, even the visual of it, but also, as you say, the storytelling behind it. We were talking there before we came on here about you doing things differently, and I noticed that you do lives with different artists and different people. How do you feel art and the lockdown and the pandemic have? What's your experience?
I think it's a really interesting phenomenon because I'm relatively new to it. So everything that I do tends to feel quite new. I don't feel like
Okay.
I've got any kind of history to draw upon, so to speak. And I would go so far as to say that even with social media is quite a new venture as well. So it's all about how to use these things and navigate these platforms in a way that feels appropriate to an audience. All of them have been relatively experimental. We've seen other people try it and gone, oh, well, you know what, I'll have a little go at that. I'll have a piece of that just to see what it's like. So whether it's doing live broadcasts or whatever, live videos with other artists and so on and so forth, it's a really enjoyable process, and it was all kind of compounded by the lockdown and the pandemic, and because of that, I just sort of, I think you do really kind of become consumed by this sense of this like national, international sense of the gravity of what's happening at the moment, and because of that, you kind of want to do something about it, and if you're in a position to be able to do that, um, by creating, by discussing, by whatever it may be, I, I think you're almost compelled as a creative person, whether you're a poet, whether you're a filmmaker, whether you're an artist, whatever it may be, you're compelled to make something in response to that.
Yeah.
And so I felt very much like um, almost like a clarity that it's a relatively straightforward process where I don't have to necessarily miss a step to be able to kind of walk in time with all of this stuff that's happening. But equally, the 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 situation as it presents itself is quite an interesting one for artists anyway, because we are so used to being isolated, we are so used to working on our own, we're so used to not speaking. I'm very used to sitting in my studio and not uttering a word for maybe 6 or 7 hours,
I know.
and then when I try and say something, my voice doesn't work out.
My husband laughs at me because sometimes he'll say, because I'm now in the house studio, he'll say, "Are you going to get off the reserve?" When he gets home from work, and I'm like, "Everyone's doing my head in, and I need it." And then he's like, "Why don't you get off the reserve?" Because the similar thing, all I want to be is sort of shut here,
Yeah.
but my only interruptions are snacks or.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes, it's very much like that. And so, going back to your question, I think in terms of then what one creates and what one produces in terms of in terms of providing some sort of a dialogue with an audience that can enrich their own experience and give them some kind of respite from the drain of what is the new normal. I don't like that phrase, but everyone kind of knows what it is.
We didn't a year ago, which is interesting.
Yes.
Now we do.
Yeah. I kind of think that is a very interesting kind of. I'm slightly reticent of embracing it like it is a thing that is going to last. The fact that people are becoming much more interested in art and maybe buying art and all that sort of stuff, because there are very clear reasons for that. There are economic and social reasons for that. One is that those people who can afford to buy art or choose to buy art probably have a holiday fund that they didn't spend last year.
Yeah.
Probably have an element of disposable income that they can use to direct those funds into art. It's not a cheap process.
No, but they're also, I think they're at home, so
they're
they're
looking at
wanting an
walls.
escapism, through.
If they've redecorated, or if they can't be bothered to redecorate or whatever, there is a very straightforward way of sprucing up a room, and that is by introducing a piece of artwork into it that can catch your eye and you can lose yourself in, and all of those sort of things. And I think, brilliant. That's an amazing thing. But equally, I'm not I'm not going to kid myself that this is going to last forever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not. There's going to be hard times again in terms of as an artist, in terms of as a business. Yeah. I'm willing, and I'm absolutely up for that and accepting of that. That I know that when normality resumes and people can go about their lives for the greater good and everything can kind of improve again, that my business will probably take a hit, and I'm perfectly happy to accept that trade-off.
Well, I think we're also used to it now. I feel like getting to this point in our careers has been, and that's why I have the podcast, because it's not a straight road to get here, and it's not an easy road. And I suppose, as you say, it's like, and you implying there that it's not like we can take all the pressure off someone, or we can carry all the responsibility for adding a little bit of color, a little bit of lightness.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
at the same time, I think it's really lovely that the arts are being recognized, and I'm sad that there's no funding. I know that's a whole other conversation, and that funding is so low. But I was talking yesterday, Obsesse, who's a radio DJ. I think you know who he is, or he knew who you were. And off air, actually, we were talking about how it like Gary Lightbody, people, those musicians in their home, breaking those barriers, letting us see. But then it's like there's no concerts, there's no funding for online. It's a strange. But then I suppose I wouldn't want to be the one dealing with money during a pandemic either.
So. No, exactly. I mean,
or decision making.
This is the thing. Yeah, I rarely have sympathy for politicians, but this is one of those moments where I think you are really never going to be in a good position to make a decent decision. There are no good decisions. There are bad decisions and worse decisions, and that's basically it. And I think from what I gather, we are starting to see the light. There will be a much more rapid progress to some kind of normality now with the vaccine rollout, and the fact that the uptake is, with all the doom and gloom and conspiracies and everything like that, there are all these concerns, but actually generally the uptake is going to be very, very good, very significant, enough to probably eradicate the current viruses, or at least stymie them into being very small pockets that recur and very infrequently here and there and everything, so most people can live normal lives, and that's great. That is all we want. It's a very strange scenario because I've talked about it quite a lot with various friends and family. It's like if you have a chart or some kind of graph, and you kind of think about the axis at 0. We kind of fell to about -9. When at the peak of the pandemic, we fell to -9, and all we're looking to do basically is get back to 0.
Yeah.
We're not even looking at getting to plus numbers. Plus numbers is what you do with your life.
Yeah.
It's just being allowed to do something with your life. And that's the really strange thing, because it's so inhuman in many ways what we're doing.
Oh yeah. That's grim. I often talk as well about longevity, and especially with the mentoring students that I mentor for in a creative space, or you're thinking about stepping out. One thing I will say is, I think for you, looking at your work, like you're in it for the long game too. Like I talk about that. Like I'm in this for the long game. Yes, the road won't be easy, but this is not a quick fix.
No.
So I think that's what lockdown has probably offered some of us, certainly me, I'm speaking for myself, is like, what are my values? Like, what do I want to get to? Where am I going?
Yeah. That's a difficult one, because I am very content with the way things have obviously unraveled between this time last year and now. But there is a very typical trajectory that an artist has to take if they want to be in it for the long game. And that is, you notice that I'm probably speaking much slower now, because I'm trying to think very carefully about how to say things that won't come across as offensive.
To me, or in general?
No. To various people who work within the art industries.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Uh,
okay. This is
so what the problem is twofold. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, and the problem is twofold. On the one hand, historically, you've got the issue of getting any kind of representation or a gallery or anything like that as an artist is paramount in terms of being able to create a platform for you to grow on. It was historically paramount, almost entirely in the days before the internet.
I was just going to say, surely you're going to
Yeah,
say, but the landscape has changed now.
yes, and I think that so moving on from the creation of the internet to the creation of social media to here and now and us and everything else,
Yeah.
and even what we're doing on Zoom and everything else, I think we are in a position of ultimate position of very obvious strength as individuals, as artists and everything, in terms of when the responsibility lies with us. We are far more likely, if we're given the tools and have the wherewithal to do it, to create our own flow, our own wind in our sails, and all that sort of stuff. We're much more likely to be able to do that. Now, a gallery, for all the best will in the world, a gallery is going to throw its weight behind its big hitters. That's just the way of the world. That's how it happens. It's how it's always happened. They're going to look at their books. They're going to see who sold the most. They're going to look. Well, they're going to work with those artists. There will be the occasional artist here and there who someone buys and they'll think, oh, that's really interesting. Can we have a bit more of your work? Blah blah blah. And that's great. That's really cool if that happens. But the reality is that no gallery is going to be able to represent you as well as you represent yourself if you're willing to take the initiative to do.
That's a great line. Yeah.
Exactly. So
yeah.
As things are right now, I have had many conversations with various galleries in the last sort of 6 months, and they've been really interesting. I'll be honest, they have been very, very interesting, but I have been very reluctant to agree to do anything with any galleries during lockdown, during pandemic, during the time where everything is online, because there's just no way, and I do not mean this in any insulting way to any gallerist, any consultant, anyone who's in the arts industries at all, but there's just no way that they're going to devote that time and energy to me the way that I can devote the time and energy to me. There's just no way. So I would like to take that on my own for now.
And the cut of it as well. Sorry to get like technical, but the physical like part of money.
Yeah.
For me, it was weighing up during lockdown. Similar thing. Anyone interested? So flattering, so exciting. And it's always what I wanted. What I wanted was the galleries.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like I could take the money. I could give a virtual assistant to help me with the back end of all my website, all those things. And so for me, some of it come down to money as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's
40%, 50%. It's a big.
it's a lot of money, especially when you're not earning very much.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't.
Or when you don't know what you're going to earn. Like we don't know month to month.
There is no guarantee, and that's a very, very precarious life to live. And I'm. Like we already discussed this a few minutes ago, I am in it for the long term, definitely, but I'm also in it for as long as I can sustain it.
Yeah. I do quite like the idea.
I will make art forever.
Yes, that's what I mean. That's what I mean about the long game. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, but is it if it's a job, or if it's a kind of like a compulsion that I have to service with another line of work to be able to afford to do it, whatever, they're both on the table,
And the other very big positive thing about galleries, and it's cool seeing them online now as well, is the eyeballs. It's that whole thing of other people's eyeballs that are on there to find work like ours. But that's probably for a whole other day. I'll not keep you too much longer. I just wanted to. It's great to chat. I wanted to ask you about social media, which we've already asked about, but are you hopes and dreams? I guess you kind of touched on that. Maybe
right.
Seems very flippant, but that can be family, and like contentment. I interviewed actually my PA for this, and she was like, "Well, we did a dream thing in our
Right.
last person meeting in December, and because I'm part of, like this female entrepreneur association, I was like, right, it's going to be this and this, and I might not reach it, but I like having it on the dream
Yeah.
board.
Yeah.
But she was saying, well, I would just like to learn a bit more. So
Yeah.
that's, you're allowed to have something like that. What is it what would you say?
This is a very difficult question to answer because I although I am naturally quite predisposed to positivity, I feel like I have to kind of underpin my answer with a little bit of negativity here. So forgive me. At the beginning of the answer, I think this is going to sound like I've kind of scripted an answer. I haven't. You've just asked me this question, but I think it's an important thing to say that I'm living the dream, right? It's happening. It's right now. Okay, I want to get out of lockdown and the pandemic and everything like that, but I am living the dream.
Oh,
Why am I?
I feel a bit emotional, you saying, but it's true. I'm kind of putting myself there too and thinking, yeah, gratitude, like.
Yeah. No, so I am very grateful, but here's where it gets a little bit negative. I am a white, middle class, middle aged man. I've rarely had to struggle for anything in my life. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I have had my fair share of struggles medically, physically, all sorts of things and everything else. So, but generally, in terms of as a statistic or as somebody who's compiling any kind of data on me, I fill the boxes of very, very much the privileged few. I am so. I feel as if my dreams are easier to fulfill.
Okay.
And therefore I am here and I am really, really ultimately very, very grateful, but I don't have to struggle even like you, Ali, because the world is going to judge you as much as a woman as they are an entrepreneur or an artist or anything like that. Your gender is going to be assessed whether you like it or not.
So interesting. Like, and I talked about this before we came on, actually.
Yeah. And I never have to even think about it.
Yeah. Well, it's nice of you to recognize, I guess, that. I suppose it's for me and my like 3 boys, and looking at them. I don't know.
I'm not trying to put a really downer. Don't get me wrong.
No. I just don't want to say the wrong thing in response either. But I appreciate you sharing that.
Well, my pleasure. But it's kind of I just think that I'm not important here in terms of the hopes and dreams. My hope and dream is that other people get to fulfill their hopes and dreams. Mm-hmm. That for me, like my wife, my kids, the family, our friends and everything like that. That's great. I've had a taste of it and I love it.
Yeah.
I've had a taste of it and it's great. But you know what? It'll last me a lifetime now. If I live till 80 and I spent a couple of years as an artist and it was quite successful and everything like that, that's great. I'll dine out on that. That's fine.
Oh, I have goosebumps. Can you just tell me, because I don't know if I'd forgotten about your wife, but I'm really interested. Can you tell us a little bit about, because even 2 creatives in the house? That's very impressive. Just before we wrap up, because I'm actually more.
Yeah, well, she is one of the reasons why we moved over here as well is she is a writer. She was a journalist. She's a writer, playwright. And now works in development for quite a well-known film production company called Element Pictures. Brilliant. Who made Normal People and The Favourite, and they're working on the new was a Conversation with Friends. The new, well, it was the book that actually I think she wrote it before Normal People, but anyway, whatever. So yeah, Claire had a couple of plays commissioned, one that was going to go in the Lyric, one that was going to go in the other one was going to go in the Mac, and so it kind of helped supplement the desire to want to move over here,
right? Because
she was going to have to spend a fair bit of time when those plays went into production. She was going to have to spend time doing that. However, funding became an issue, and then the pandemic as well. Everything was just getting cancelled left, right, and centre.
Yeah.
And one thing leads to another, and suddenly everything is just basically cancelled.
Full stop.
So, which is awful, because she spent a couple of years writing these plays, getting them in process. Obviously, she was paid up front. She commissioned. That's the way the process works. You know, they've already given the money, but then other things happen, and these things become suddenly history that never really happened, in fact. So yeah, that's been difficult. But she does a lot of radio plays, and she did
Oh wow!
yeah,
Right.
and she wrote this film that was watched, I think, maybe 3 or 4 million times over the internet, called Hard Border, which was narrated by Stephen Ray, and he was in it. And it's like a 7-minute film that was all about Brexit and a cry from the border, in terms of, and it kind of, and it was like retweeted and everything by like leading politicians, prime ministers, and everything else, and and it was just a very sort of surreal experience. And then she did another film as well that was made by a short film during the pandemic that was made last autumn by Emma Jordan of Prime Cut Productions. She directed it, and that was a kind of a lockdown experience sort of poem, if you like. And yeah, she's phenomenal. Claire is she's a remarkable creative, and a really intuitive creative. She has a very, very very clear idea of what a societal pulse is.
Okay. Another good line. Very good. Well, I look forward to actually. Is she on social as well? Can I?
Doesn't do any social
No
media.
social. That's good. That's
She
probably.
never did. She never did. She was. I mean, it's been a lesson to me in many ways. She just was like, no, not
I
anymore.
know, but isn't that beautiful? It's great.
Yeah, yeah.
And just lastly, before we finish, are you reading anything at the minute?
Yeah. I mean, I often read several things at the same time. So at the moment on my bedside table, I've got James Baldwin's The Fire Next Time.
Okay.
Which I've only just started reading. I've like literally, I'm about 5 pages in.
Okay.
But I'm very interested. I'm very interested in the whole kind of. I'm very interested in race history, and I'm very interested in Black Lives Matter and what they're trying to achieve. I'm also, I've got a couple of other things. I'm rereading. I'm about to reread American Pastoral by Philip Roth, which I do like Philip Roth a lot.
Okay. I don't know that one.
He is he's kind of like one of the great American 20th century writers. But yeah, so I kind of read loads and loads of things, but then at the moment I tend to read art books. It's really boring. I've spent a load of money on art books recently, and I'm really enjoying them. I'm really.
Give us the name of one. Do you know what? Like one as in art history, or just
no, mate. It was like some new artist books. There's a German artist called Ruprecht von Kaufmann.
Okay.
And he has just released a book of the last 10 years of his work. And it's not cheap. It's a good, I mean, I think it's like €30 or something like that. But his paintings are gobsmackingly good. Like, it's so difficult to explain how good they are. But technically, visually, thematically, theoretically, in terms of his spirituality and everything, his paintings are incomparable. They are beyond brilliant.
Okay. There was an interesting.
And I hate him for it.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm like, I can't wait till I'm there. There was a thing came up on social media the other day, and it was an artist. I don't even know who it was actually. That's why I'm thinking. I wonder if it was them. And it was him holding a book, and it was a signing book, and he said, "This was my art on the cover." That's what it was. It was an artist who got the cover of.
Right.
This is totally vague, but I read the blurb underneath, and he was like, "I felt like I had made it when I was here," and then he said, and now obviously he's growing, but he said, "I don't take for granted the steps to get to where you are. Take every opportunity," or something.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, you know what? I disagree with that. Don't take every opportunity.
Take the ones that fit.
Learn how to say no as well.
Yeah, that's
really
true.
Important. Really important.
I had to learn how to say no to commissions now, because and it's hard to tell people that are working for not necessarily in the creative sector to say every commission I do takes my eyes away from my own, and it was.
Yep, it's a very, very important.
I'm creeping towards it still. It's like, but
it is an important thing to know how to do. I think as a business venture or whatever, you have to as an artist, you have to learn how to steer clients into the commission that you want to produce for them.
And that's what's been lovely, and I can see that in yours as well. Whenever you're commissioned, when someone totally gets your style, totally, like some of my favorite commissions were in the last year. Someone who just buys lots of art, and he was like, "I love it, but you do whatever you want with it." And you can tell with what I do that's different from what someone else said.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's very, very important to do that, and to feel like you're giving them input, and you're making it seem like it's their idea to a certain extent, but you're very much framing it around, this is what we're going to do, otherwise it's not happening.
And the right price for it too.
Well, exactly, and that's the other thing is that's kind of what I'd say to younger up and coming artists who ask me a lot about how to price things and what to do, and I say, you have to learn how to stay firm to your price. Don't wait just because they don't reply straight away or whatever. Don't wait and then decide to knock off 20% and all that stuff. You'll end up with nothing.
Exactly. And also another thing I always say as well is, you'd rather get one at the right price than 14 at the crap price. But we all learn, I suppose, too. And I think I don't know whether it's a female thing for me too, but it was a lot of, it took me a long time to get.
Yeah, no, I think to be honest, I think that's an artist thing. I don't think it's a female thing. I think
an undervalued.
I think we're all raw. We're all super raw and super naive and super kind of, at the beginning, you just don't have a clue. You're not born with this information.
No, that's a whole other podcast too. It's like,
yeah.
Make you really good at your art practice in art college, and then just off you go.
Yeah, exactly. And funnily enough, you're not taught anything in art college about art practice or business at all, and it's but
we're doing it, and I really appreciate your time, because I know that you're the same then as me, with time is precious.
My pleasure.
We have the lad or the kids. You have a girl, are you two girls and a boy?
Two girls and a boy.
Brilliant. Well, all the best, and thank you. If people want to find you, where do they go?
They can find me, Dan Ferguson Artist on Instagram, or www.danferguson.co.uk is my website.
Brilliant. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure too. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome. Thanks so much for tuning in today. If you enjoyed the episode, I would really appreciate some feedback, or for you to hit subscribe so that you get all the content every week in your inbox. And if you would like to check out my website, it's alihart.com, especially if you were thinking about needing some mentoring sessions, because I have openings coming up in the summer. Thanks for watching and listening, and I will see you on the other side.